Some of y'all remember May 20, 1981, when Diana Ross announced she was leaving Motown Records after 20 years, ending the most important artist-label relationship in black music history. Diana leaving Berry Gordy wasn't just changing labels, it was divorcing the man who'd controlled her career since she was a teenager, betting she could maintain success without the infrastructure that had made her a superstar. Do you remember the rumors circulating months before the announcement? Everyone understood the significance. Diana was Motown's biggest star, Berry's greatest creation, the symbol of everything Motown had achieved. Her departure would be seismic, questioning everything about their relationship and their futures. Diana's reasons for leaving accumulated over years. By her late 30s, she recognized Berry's management came with costs she wouldn't accept anymore. She wanted control over her music and image, fair compensation for her enormous value, freedom to work with different producers without Berry's approval, and proof she could succeed without Motown's machinery. Financial issues drove the decision significantly. Diana didn't own her master recordings, received modest royalties compared to the revenue she generated, and had little control over how her catalog was exploited. Berry structured contracts heavily favoring Motown. Diana earned enough to maintain loyalty, but not fair value. She recognized that exploitation and wanted better terms, only available by leaving. Creative control mattered too. Berry determined which songs Diana recorded, which producers she worked with, which directions she pursued. While his judgment had been excellent, Diana wanted freedom to make her own choices without requiring Berry's approval. The lack of autonomy frustrated her as she developed an artistic vision separate from Berry's. Some of y'all remember how Diana's marriages, first to Robert Silverstein, later to Arn Ness Jr., gave her distance from Berry and showed life beyond his control was possible. Bob Silverstein particularly encouraged Diana to question whether Berry's management served her interests as well as it served his and Motown's. The personal relationship between Diana and Berry had evolved by 1981. They weren't romantically involved. Rhonda was 10, and the intense emotional entanglement had loosened. With distance came clarity about the problematic professional relationship and recognition that staying meant accepting Berry's control indefinitely. RCA's courtship provided the opportunity Diana needed. They offered substantially more money than Motown, better contract terms, including higher royalties and ownership participation, creative control, and commitment to major promotional support. The financial package reportedly reached $20 million over 7 years. Enormous money reflecting RCA's belief Diana could remain a major star. Berry's reaction mixed business calculation with personal pain. He understood losing Diana would damage Motown's prestige and viability when the label already struggled. But Berry couldn't match RCA's offer without devastating Motown's finances, and keeping Diana against her will would create a damaging public battle. He had to accept her departure despite personal and professional hurt. Diana's departure terms showed Berry's continuing control. He insisted Motown retain ownership of all Diana's masters, maintain rights to the Supreme's name and legacy, and receive ongoing financial benefits from her past work. Diana's departure was expensive financially and emotionally, showing independence required paying a significant price, even after generating enormous profits for Motown. The emotional aspects hurt both despite professional necessity. Diana was leaving the only home she'd known, severing ties with Berry, who'd been mentor, lover, father of a child, and dominant figure for 2 decades. Berry was losing his greatest artist, the woman whose success had proven his vision. The separation hurt regardless of how necessary it had become. Diana's first RCA album, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, released late 1981, was designed to prove she could succeed without Berry. The album revisited 1960s girl group classics, showcasing her voice on familiar material while demonstrating she could work with new producers successfully. The nostalgic approach was strategic, reminding audiences of Diana's history while presenting new collaborations. Do you remember how Why Do Fools Fall in Love performed? Reaching respectable positions and going platinum, but not quite matching Diana's peak Motown dominance. The moderate success showed Diana could still sell records, but raised questions about maintaining superstar status without Berry's strategic guidance and Motown's machinery. Critics noted that while Diana sounded good, the album lacked innovative production that characterized her best Motown work. Diana's subsequent RCA albums showed inconsistent results that became a pattern during the post-Motown years. Occasional successes like Muscles and Missin' You proving Diana could deliver hits, but overall sales and chart performance declining from her peak. The inconsistency suggested Berry's involvement had provided quality control Diana's new team couldn't fully replicate. The creative freedom at RCA produced mixed artistic results. Diana worked with diverse producers, including Chic's Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, but follow-up collaborations didn't always yield success. Diana experimented with different sounds, learning through trial and error without Berry's experienced judgment. Freedom to make choices also meant freedom to make mistakes Berry probably would have prevented. We're already working on a video about Diana Ross's biggest hits and what made each one special, the stories behind songs that became the soundtrack to Black America's most important moments. Press subscribe now so you don't miss it. The financial benefits of Diana's RCA deal were real. She earned substantially more per album, received better royalty rates, and had ownership participation Berry never offered. Diana became wealthier despite inconsistent commercial performance, proving financial restructuring was worthwhile, even with mixed results. Diana's live performance career flourished post-Motown. She toured extensively, commanding enormous fees for concerts and Vegas residencies. Live income became increasingly important as record sales fluctuated, showing Diana had built a brand and audience loyalty transcending any label relationship. Her legendary status filled venues and attracted audiences paying premium prices, providing economic stability when albums disappointed. Some of y'all remember feeling conflicted about Diana's post-Motown career. Proud she'd asserted independence and earned more with greater control, but disappointed she wasn't dominating charts and culture like before. The decline from absolute superstar to still successful but less dominant artist felt like a loss, even though Diana gained autonomy and financial benefits. Berry's career after Diana's departure showed significant challenges as Motown struggled without its biggest star. The label had other successful artists, but nobody could replace Diana's consistency and crossover appeal. Berry sold Motown to MCA in 1988, essentially admitting that without Diana and other departed artists, Motown couldn't maintain its position. Diana's departure had been a significant blow, contributing to Motown's decline. Diana's relationship with her Motown catalog remained complicated. She couldn't perform some famous songs without complex negotiations, couldn't control how her Motown music was licensed, and had to accept that her most valuable work belonged to Berry and Motown. The continuing economic relationship meant Diana never achieved complete independence from Berry, remaining financially connected through the catalog he owned. The gradual reconciliation between Diana and Berry, beginning in the late 1980s, showed that despite the difficult separation, genuine affection and respect remained. They found ways to work together occasionally, acknowledge each other's importance, celebrate shared history without fully returning to their previous relationship. Diana's return to Motown in 1989 surprised many who'd viewed her 1981 departure as permanent. The return was temporary, one album, working overtime, and represented an attempt to recapture their magic. The reunion showed neither had fully moved past their relationship or stopped believing they could create successful music together. Do you remember how Working Overtime performed? Achieving moderate success, but not recreating Diana's peak Motown dominance. The album showed Diana and Berry couldn't simply resume their relationship expecting the same results. Too much had changed for them to recapture what they'd once had. The reunion was a nostalgic exercise that didn't produce a sustained renaissance. Diana's eventual signing with EMI in the 1990s represented a continuing search for the right label relationship. The EMI years produced some successful singles, showing Diana could still deliver commercially viable music, but she never recaptured sustained chart dominance. Diana had become a legacy artist, whose new work was appreciated by loyal fans, but who no longer regularly produced massive crossover hits. Whether Diana's career would have been different staying at Motown can't be answered definitively, but it prompts speculation. Would Berry have helped Diana navigate changing trends more successfully? Or had their relationship become so limited that staying meant artistic stagnation and continued exploitation without compensating benefits? Different people reach different conclusions based on their values. Some of y'all remember debates about whether Diana's departure represented a feminist victory, a woman asserting independence from a controlling man, or a strategic mistake damaging her career unnecessarily. These debates revealed different priorities about autonomy versus success, whether Diana's increased earnings and control justified less consistent performance, whether legendary status required continued chart dominance, or whether Diana's icon status was secure regardless. Diana's departure's impact on other Motown artists was significant. Artists watching Diana leave and work successfully elsewhere gained courage to question their own relationships and consider seeking better terms at other labels. Diana's departure accelerated Motown's decline by encouraging other artists to leave, demonstrating that even the biggest stars felt exploited enough to risk leaving. The financial legacy of Diana's Motown years continued generating substantial revenue for Berry and subsequent owners long after Diana left. Every time classics played on radio, appeared in films or commercials, or sold through any format, Diana received modest royalties, while Motown and Universal Music Group captured the majority revenue. Leaving Motown didn't solve Diana's fundamental problem of not owning her most valuable work. Diana's later career focus on live performance, tours, and concert residencies reflected a realistic assessment of where her strengths lay as a legacy artist. Diana could command enormous fees trading on her legend and catalog of classics, while new albums faced challenges of changed industry economics and reduced relevance to younger audiences. Diana adapted intelligently, leveraging her legend. Critical reassessment of Diana's career in the 1990s and 2000s established her legacy as one of the most important figures in popular music history, regardless of post-Motown commercial performance. Critics and fans recognized her peak Motown years were extraordinary and historically significant, her influence on subsequent generations profound, and her icon status secure, regardless of whether she ever had another major hit. The contemporary music industry, with its emphasis on artist ownership, fair contracts, and performer autonomy, has largely vindicated Diana's decision to leave, even if the departure involved commercial costs. Current observers understand Diana was right to demand fair compensation and creative control, that Berry's paternalistic control was inappropriate, regardless of success. Looking back at Diana's 1981 departure reveals it was simultaneously a brave assertion of autonomy and a risky bet that didn't fully pay off commercially. The departure was a successful financial negotiation, making Diana wealthier, and a professional transition, resulting in less consistent quality and performance. Success or failure depends on which metrics you value. Diana achieved independence, creative control, and better terms, but didn't maintain sustained dominance or produce post-Motown work matching her greatest achievements. Do you remember discussing whether you'd have made Diana's choice? Stand in an exploitative but successful relationship, or risking everything to assert independence? The hypothetical revealed different values about autonomy versus security, whether commercial success justified accepting control and exploitation, what prices were worth paying for independence. The broader lesson is that leaving control in relationships requires courage and involves real costs, that a certain autonomy doesn't guarantee better outcomes, but has intrinsic value regardless of practical results, that independence is worth pursuing even when staying might be easier or more rewarding short-term. Diana's example showed choosing freedom and self-determination has value beyond commercial success. Some of y'all remember feeling inspired by Diana's courage, seeing her decision as a model for a certain autonomy in your own relationships, where someone held power over your choices. Diana's willingness to risk commercial decline and walk away from the infrastructure that had sustained her showed self-determination was possible, even when dependence seemed total and leaving seemed impossibly risky. Comparison between Diana's experience and other artists leaving dominant labels suggests her challenges and mixed results were typical rather than unique. Artists from Prince to George Michael to Tina Turner faced similar struggles asserting independence, achieving various success degrees after departure, but consistently valuing autonomy regardless of whether performance matched peak years. Diana's post-Motown career longevity, continuing to perform, record occasionally, and maintain a relevant presence into the 2020s, shows she successfully built a sustainable career beyond Motown. Even if never recapturing peak dominance, Diana proved she could survive and thrive after leaving Berry, that her talent and legend was substantial enough to sustain decades of continued success, that risks she took in 1981 were justified by the long-term career she built on her own terms. The financial benefits Diana achieved through leaving Motown and negotiating better terms substantially improved her economic position, despite not owning Motown masters. Diana earned significantly more per album at RCA, gained ownership participation she never had, and commanded higher performance fees as an independent artist. The financial restructuring made Diana wealthier and gave her more control over her economic destiny. The ultimate question is whether legendary status and historical significance can be maintained without sustained commercial dominance, whether Diana's icon status survived the decline in hit-making following her departure, whether what she gained in autonomy compensated for what she lost in consistent success. The answer seems to be yes. Diana Ross is recognized as one of music history's most important figures, regardless of post-Motown performance, suggesting peak achievement and lasting influence matter more than maintaining dominance across an entire career. What do you think about Diana's 1981 decision to leave Motown? Was it a brave assertion of independence justifying commercial costs, or a strategic mistake unnecessarily damaging her career? Would you have made the same choice in her position, risking commercial decline to assert autonomy? Did Diana's post-Motown career validate her decision or suggest she should have stayed despite Berry's control? Drop your honest assessment in the comments. This complicated situation deserves thoughtful discussion about autonomy, success, and prices worth paying for independence. Hit that like button, and if you want to help us preserve these honest, nuanced stories about our icons' difficult choices, examining success and struggle truthfully rather than just celebrating triumph, please subscribe.